Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landingrop in Sussex is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So, Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Happy Friday afternoon, Friday tea time, everybody. It's Friday the 14th of April, and this is 5 Fact Friday, because you can't fight the facts. Now, welcome to all new subscribers and new viewers. Hi, Jacek, Noon Rich, Happy Mark. Hi, the guys in the comments. I would like to just recap the purpose of 5 Fact Friday. These are... because there are still some people struggling with the concept, and I really want to just make hi Daniel, Darren, hi guys. Right, sorry, I have to switch the comments off. Otherwise I can't concentrate. There are some people still struggling with the concept of facts versus opinions, and I find it funny because I each week I try harder to be clear, and I invite people to tell me what fact they would say, and it's almost always an opinion. So let me qualify what we've got, which is 5 things that are verifiable. I'm providing all the links. Quantifiable, in other words, they are numerically checkable. You can measure them, right? So these are numerical, measurable, verifiable things that have happened, which in my view have the most significant effect on the housing market of anything that's happened in the last 5 days. Again, some people have been suggesting things that happened ages ago or long-term stuff. It's 5 facts that are new this week, all right? Because that's just helpful, isn't it, right? What are the 5 things that have happened that have the most impact on the housing market? Right, I want to try and get this under 15 minutes. I've already used nearly 3, and I've got Housing Stig, who's waiting ready. Are you there?
I am here.
Come in, Housing Stig.
I'm with you, Charlie.
Hi, mates. Let's crack into this. And we're going to try and just spend just two or 3 minutes on each point. Now, so point number 1 was the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, who put out their monthly sentiment survey when they put a survey out to all of their surveyors all around the country. Right now, these are qualified chartered surveyors, so they are professionals. You could argue that they are estate agents with qualifications, and the other ones don't have qualifications. Some of them are only surveyors, some of them are surveyors and estate agents. But historically, this survey has been the most reliable leading indicator of what house prices are going to do.
Yeah.
And let me start with this page here. So this is Money website, and house prices and sales continue to fall as buyers sit on their hands, but there are signs the picture will improve in the long run. Okay, so but the buyer demand, prices, and new listing levels remain sluggish in March. So you might say, well, hang on, Charlie, it's a fact that they said levels are expected to improve in the next 12 months.
That's an opinion.
That's an opinion.
I can spot the difference, Charlie.
Yes. So, but let me also just share with you this particular graph from the PDF, which you can all go, if you just go and Google RICS Housing Market Survey, you'll find this PDF. I've also linked to these articles below. And this, I think, is the most useful graphic in there for the purposes of 5 Fact Friday. I'm just going to hide that so you can got me here. Very, very quick few seconds on this. Now, amazingly, this is so negative that the zero begins at the top of the page. Can you see that? Right? The have I got this on? Yeah. So it's for every region of the country, the price expectations in the next 3 months are strongly negative. The only ones that aren't strongly negative, I'll read them out because they're hidden behind Housing Stig's thing, are the Northwest is only slightly negative, and Northern Ireland on the far right-hand side is slightly negative. But all of the others, so this is the balance of how many think it's negative versus positive. And in every single region in the next 3 months, it's negative. The least negative being the Northwest, the most negative being East Anglia, interestingly, and then the West Midlands, and then the Southeast. And yes, it's marginally less negative overall on average than previous month, but it's almost like, well, okay, what do they think this month? Yes, there's an improvement on last month, but it's an improvement where house prices are still expected to fall. Okay, so Alex, do you have any comments on this?
It's very self-explanatory.
Yeah,
there are no other conclusions to be drawn. This is the data. This is what they've had back from their surveys.
Yeah. So it's what the most qualified people who are in the business of helping people move house are seeing happening at the coalface in their businesses all around the country.
Yeah. Right.
So, okay. So let's hope no one's going to argue that is not a relevant fact for the housing market. It's about as relevant as they get, isn't it? It's recent and it's relevant. Point number 2. Mortgage defaults are rising. Now, I want to read this out so that people listening on the audio podcast can hear this. And this is linked to below. And by the way, this is The Guardian. I tend to use links to papers that aren't behind paywalls wherever. Okay, so you'll see I always use different newspapers. I'm not a fan of any one paper over the other. Lenders report increase in households defaulting on loans. The UK lenders have recorded a rise in households defaulting on loans over the past 3 months, according to new data from the Bank of England. The Bank of England's Credit Conditions Survey found that default rates on secured loans to households, such as mortgages, increased in the last quarter and were expected to increase further in Q2. Interestingly enough, I think it's relevant to point out that they go on to say it's the same picture for unsecured lending, with lenders reporting a rise in defaults on both credit cards and other unsecured loans in December to February, and a further increase is expected in March to May. Alex, can you please tell everybody why this is relevant to the housing market?
Well, anything to do with defaulting on loans is obviously relevant because it suggests how much money people actually have and whether they're struggling with interest rates. Yeah. I would be at pains to point out with this that yes, there has been an increase, but it is not dramatic. We're not seeing the sort of things that we saw back in 2008 yet. This is the beginning potentially of a trend. The actual numerical data, I don't know if you've linked it, Charlie, can be found on the FCA website or in the Bank of England bank stats. Okay. What we're looking at to quantify it is defaulting at the moment on amounts due of approximately £500 million. Okay. So in the overall economy, it's not huge, but it's also not a tiny number.
No, and the as you're right, it's the trend. So Q4 last year was slightly up on the quarter before. Q1 this year is up slightly.
Yep.
Still not dramatic numbers, but expected to increase. So that's the trend. Is that the more people defaulting on mortgages is a negative pressure on house prices overall. Yeah. That's the point. Okay, so next point. Credit conditions. So this, point number 3, is that the Bank of England, in the same survey, I'll read it out. This is the Bank of England's website page. Again, this is linked to below. Lenders reported that the availability of secured credit to households, which is probably mortgages, was unchanged in the 3 months at the end of February. Okay, oh, well, that's good. But the lenders expected availability to decrease over the next 3 months. Well, that's new, I think. We haven't had an expected decrease in the supply of secured credit for a while. That's why I've included it this week. I think that's relevant because that expected decrease in mortgage supply comes even though demand for mortgages has actually increased slightly, according to I can't remember which other survey it was this week.
Yeah.
So what is this? The beginning of a credit crunch?
It certainly looks that way. I mean, you were hearing exactly the same news from the US. The chief exec, I think, or chairman, chief exec of JP Morgan said much the same thing, that American banks are likely to start restricting mortgage credit just because of the turbulence they've had in the banking system recently, even though banks, because of interest rates, are showing record profits. And we're seeing the same sort of thing here, exactly as you said. There does seem to be more demand, incredibly, from buyers, but there are not so many mortgage approvals. So I think we are seeing the beginning of, if not a credit crunch yet, at least a tightening on the supply of credit, where they're going to be looking very carefully at who they lend to.
Don't you also think it's something to do with their expectations of risk?
Yes, exactly. Longer term is they when I say that they'll be very careful as to who they lend to, they are absolutely assessing risk because of the potential in the future for people to default on loans because of job losses, etc.
So this is what this is probably going to mean at the coalface for an individual buyer. Is they're going to find it tougher to get mortgages. Fewer people are going to get approved, aren't they?
Yeah, unless you have the perfect credit score and the perfect, and a long job history, you're going to find it much harder. And for those who don't have that, they may still lend, but it will be at a higher rate to cover their risk.
Right. Cool. Okay, thank you very much. Right, on to, so that's 3. That's point number 3. Number 4. New build property sales plunge in latest. That's not my word. That's the Telegraph's word. Plunge in latest blow to the housing market.
For once, it is actually a good word. Because this is definitely, when people keep asking, how do you determine a crash? When you see a drop of 24%, that's
right,
a plunge.
And this is funny. This is 24% compared with a year ago of the sale of new built houses in February. But that is in line with actually what the building firms have all predicted for this year. I think Persimmon predicted a 50% drop this year in new build sales. Well, that's the relevance, actually, I think that is a message to anyone who is in the market to buy a new build, is that it's a buyer's market if you're buying new builds. So just remember that, and you can negotiate hard. And I just always try and find more than one to choose from. And if they know you're a real buyer and they know that they're competing with another builder to sell you something, that's how you find the best deal very quickly. But I think that's. Oh, I did also notice, though, out of interest, that house building firms' share prices have bottomed out.
Well,
interestingly,
sorry, they had that massive drop off in September when all of the between the budget, the bond yields, whichever one you believe was more important, started. They have then come back up a lot through, I think, until around the end of Feb. Then, as we had the banking issues in America, they've dropped again, and they're not back to the levels that they were in, say, I don't know, July of last year.
Oh God, no! They've just stopped falling for the first time.
Exactly,
it's been a long downward slide. Okay, and on to the last one that might be worth a couple of minutes of discussion. So this is fact number 5 of 5 Fact Friday. Sorry, just do enjoy my bit of alliteration. On the ONS website, I did have it in the right place, and now I haven't got it. So these are figures out just today from the ONS. Just check that's displaying okay on the. Yes, here we are. That's good. Economic activity and social change in the UK. And the main points on the third bullet point, it says the total number of online job adverts. So let's be very precise about that. That's not job vacancies, which comes out. When is that?
18th, Tuesday next week.
Tuesday next week. It's a new and it's an experimental measurement. Online job adverts 1% on the previous week, so they're measuring this weekly, but was 18% lower than the equivalent period of 2022. So there are 18% fewer jobs being advertised online than there were this time last year. I mean, assuming that that's not a totally useless metric in terms of the way that they're gathering the data, I would suggest that that's one of the first it feels like an accurate reflection of what's happening in the real world.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, no doubt that there are now fewer jobs on offer than there were a year ago. I mean, it was very easy to find
That's
work.
a big drop. That's a big drop.
It is, and online adverts, I'm not sure I would be too interested in the fact that it's 18% on the basis that many jobs are never advertised online, or at least they're advertised after somebody's already got the position. But it gives you an idea as to what companies are feeling about employing or enlarging their labor force at the moment. And most of them are not. They are looking for efficiencies. We're back into that cost-cutting efficiency exercise.
When we were messaging before the live stream, you mentioned that the last official vacancies figure was actually still down 4.3% in a quarter. Is that right?
You're correct.
And that's a more reliable.
That seems that's more where I'd be looking at. And bear in mind, 4%, 4.3%. That's a lot of vacancy. That's a lot of jobs.
That's a big drop in the number of vacancies. I agree. Yeah. And again, the relevance to the housing market of this is.
As the number of job vacancies fall and less people or unemployment increases, yet again, people will be struggling if they have a house to pay their mortgages. Certainly, or to get on the ladder, and that generally will mean there's less pressure or demand for buying, but there'll be more for selling. So therefore, prices drop.
And I think that the reason that as you all know, if you watch these videos regularly, it is mine and Alex's view that in the medium and long term, house prices are coming down a long way. There might be little kinks along the way, bit up here, bit down here, like Halifax house price report last week saying third month in a row they've gone up a bit, but that doesn't change our view. And the reason for displaying these points is that whatever's happened to house prices, I want people who want to move house to be able to make their decisions. And these are pretty much facts. There's not a lot of opinion. I mean, yes, the RICS is predicting the next 3 months of house prices. They're just, it's not, but they're not saying how much. They're just expecting falls on balance. And I mean, every single point I've got here, which is again a verifiable fact that's been reported this week, in my view, is a new negative effect on house prices, not on house transactions, but on house price. Well, actually, if mortgage supply drops,
yes, it will drop transactions as well.
Yeah, that I think wraps up 5 Fact Friday for this week. But as ever, if you think that there was a newly reported fact in the last 5 days that has a more significant impact on the housing market than any of the 5 that I've come up with, then please let me know in the comments below. I'm like genuinely happy to be challenged, but understand it must have been newly reported in the last 5 days, okay, and be a fact that's verifiable and quantifiable, that you can argue has as big or bigger an impact on the housing market than any of these 5 points. I'm not saying that there are no positives, right? I'm not saying that there aren't any positives. There are so many facts that are new this week. I mean, there's far, far more than I've got time to go into, and some of them are positive. I'm not saying all the facts that were reported this week were negative. Some were positive. For example, there's been a significant increase in the number of more than 35-year mortgages being taken out, reported by the Financial Times. And, that is some people will go, that's not good news in the long term. But, some people would argue, well, hang on, that's an unexpected uptick in borrowing or so. Well, I don't know. The number of people taking out extra long-term mortgages would, to me, just suggest that is a countermeasure to affordability being bad.
Correct.
Not necessarily a positive sign about the market. But Neil Hudson, who's the FT journalist, put a tweet out this morning that I retweeted saying he's been surprised at how resilient the housing market has been, how many first-time buyers are still going out and buying. But again, I actually agree with him. I mean, it has kind of held on a bit longer, like fingernails clinging on. But I still think that we're going to start in the second half of this year is when we'll start to see the bigger falls from the early part of this year being reported, coming through into the mainstream media, and therefore the slow motion. And it feels like ultra slow motion, doesn't it, Alex?
Absolutely.
Really slow motion. But there are, not because I want them to be, because that's what I think the data suggests. And Alex is long-term looking at wage growth, mortgage approvals, and
interest rates, inflation.
All, and when you factor in the time lag of all of that is suggesting further downward moves in house prices. Anyway, anything you want to sign off with Alex on this? You can find Alex on Twitter at Alex Groundwater, if you want to find him and look at some of his fascinating graphs. But otherwise, guys, everyone have a great weekend. And Alex, anything you want to sign off with?
No, the only thing is, you got a lot of people commenting about the 35-year mortgage. Actually, they're talking a lot about people taking out 40-year mortgages, which in my mind is just storing up paying for the future when people still have mortgage payments to make after they have reached and exceeded retirement age. So it's another can being kicked down the road and will end in pain. Not now, but in 40 years.
I don't disagree with you, but I do think there's a counter argument that for some people, some individuals, it's still a better option than renting forever.
Yeah, yes, but all we're talking about is the least bad option.
Yeah.
We're not talking about any good options here.
Well, that's another topic for discussion on another video. But for now, guys, I want to keep it short. We've gone over 20 minutes. Sorry about that. I try and keep it concise, but have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all to those of you who come. By the way, if you are, some people have been saying to me, Charlie, we never know when your live streams are going to happen. It's always too short, last minute. If you're watching on YouTube and you're subscribed, you need to subscribe and you need to click the little bell, right? And that little bell, I'm not asking you to click the bell unless you're someone that wants to know and be actively notified when I schedule a live stream. Because sometimes there's only 2 hours notice, right? Be subscribed, click the little bell, and then it will, I think, sometimes email you or give you a notification or whatever it might be, so that you'll actually get notified immediately that there's a live stream about to happen, for those of you who don't want to miss out on them. But guys, thanks a lot. Have a fantastic weekend. Remember not to overpay, but do buy now if you need a home. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.